This decision stemmed from his reliance on the support of the Hanbali faction, which held considerable influence in Baghdad. The Abbasids had representatives in Baghdad, but their main power was based in regions like Nishapur in Iran. Though the caliph's personal religious beliefs are unclear, his political allegiance was firmly aligned with the Hanbalis, recognizing their role as his primary supporters. The Ash'ari students understood that the caliph would not intervene on their behalf. The tensions eventually calmed as the Hanbali students, led by the followers of Abu Ja'far, retreated. No further violence occurred. However, the situation deeply angered the rector of the university, Abu Ishaq, who announced his intention to travel to Nishapur to report these events directly to the Seljuk Sultan. After hearing of Abu Ishaq's plan, the caliph forbade his travel, imposing a restriction on his movement. The caliph feared that Abu Ishaq would present the Sultan with a damaging account of the unrest in Baghdad, highlighting the violence that had broken out under his watch. Embarrassed by the incident, the Abu Ishaq sent one of his students to the Nizam al-Mulk with a letter detailing the events. The Nizam al-Mulk response, preserved in historical records, expressed deep anger over the treatment of the Ash'ari students. In the letter, he even suggested that the madrasa itself might need to be shut down, so frustrated was he by the situation. Fearing that Abu Ishaq and the Ash'ari students would paint him in a negative light before the Sultan, the caliph convened a historic meeting at his palace. This meeting was an unprecedented attempt to broker peace between the two factions. He invited key figures from both sides, including prominent scholars and the directors of the university. The goal was to resolve the conflict and prevent further unrest. This meeting signaled that tensions had reached an unprecedented level in Baghdad. Historically, the Abbasid caliphs had maintained close ties with their subjects, interacting directly with them. However, by this time, they had begun to distance themselves, communicating through intermediaries even when meeting visitors. This marked a significant shift in the political and social dynamics of the Abbasid court. During this period, communication with the caliph was mediated through intermediaries. Those seeking an audience would relay their message through this intermediary, who would then return with the caliph's response. At the palace, the individuals involved in the conflict were not directly in front of the caliph. Rather, the intermediary moved between them and the caliph, attempting to mediate the issue. Eyewitness accounts provide details of this event. When a prominent figure, Abu Ishaq, arrived at the palace, he approached Abu Ja'far with great reverence, standing up and kissing his head. He expressed admiration for Abu Ja'far, who was by this time around 80 years old, remarking that he had been a loyal student of his. Abu Ja'far, in response, acknowledged the truth of the compliment but quickly shifted the conversation. He accused the Abu Ishaq of showing his true colors, indicating that when he was in private, he appeared to be supportive, but now, in the presence of others, he revealed his duplicity, acting in a manner contrary to his previous behavior. In a stinging rebuke, Abu Ja'far refused to accept any show of respect from this individual, dismissing him harshly. Another figure then rose, al-Qushayri, which introduced himself too. This was their first meeting with Abu Ja'far. Abu Ja'far continued, saying that if anyone deserved thanks for their honesty, it was this man. Unlike the others in the room, who were silent or had failed to support him, this individual had been forthright in expressing his beliefs, regardless of their controversy. His irritation was evident, particularly toward the senior clergy who had remained passive while Abu Ja'far continued teaching at the university. He viewed this as a betrayal, accusing them of hypocrisy for not defending him. Although he disliked the young cleric, he begrudgingly respected him for his honesty, calling the others in the room double-faced for their silence. As tensions escalated, the caliph attempted to mediate. Abu Ja'far's frustration, however, was evident as he spoke against any potential reconciliation. He argued that reconciliation could not occur when the issues at stake were not merely positions of authority, wealth, or inheritance, but deeply held beliefs. He noted that those opposing his views considered him a heretic, and he regarded them the same, making any form of reconciliation impossible. Raising his voice, he emphasized the point by referencing the caliph's own lineage. He accused the caliph of persecuting them despite the fact that his own grandfather had once commanded the recitation of the same creed that Abu Ja'far and his followers upheld. He pointed out that this creed had been proclaimed across the Islamic world, even in the Quran recitations, underscoring the irony of the current situation. This statement was a direct challenge to the caliph's authority, implying that the caliph had strayed from the beliefs of his forebears. Despite the caliph's attempts to calm the situation, tensions could not be diffused. As a result, the caliph decided to imprison Abu Ja'far, confining him permanently to one of the rooms in the palace, effectively placing him under house arrest. Abu Ja'far remained under house arrest in the palace, permitted some visitors but not allowed to teach. His condition deteriorated, and upon falling gravely ill, he was returned to his family, where he passed away shortly thereafter. His arrest stemmed from the caliph's inability to detain al-Qushayr, a guest from Nishapur, and two others who had incited public unrest, resulting in a deadly altercation. To quell the situation, the caliph restricted Abu Ja'far's movements, claiming he would remain a guest in the palace. Despite his confinement, Abu Ja'far was eventually denied visitors, with letters from outside going unanswered. After several months of illness, the caliph became concerned and sent him back to his family, where he died within days. Rumors circulated that the caliph had orchestrated his demise, a conspiracy that gained traction during that era. A letter was dispatched from Nishapur suggesting that al-Qushayr cease his activities in Baghdad and return to Nishapur, where he remained until his death, never to return to the capital. This marked a significant moment in the conflict between the factions, as it represented the first physical confrontation between the two groups, escalating tensions at the highest political level. The Islamic community showed sympathy for Abu Ja'far, and it seemed that the house arrest of the leaders would bring an end to the turmoil. However, the treatment of both leaders, one under confinement and the other expelled, continued to provoke students on both sides, leading to increased discord. By Ramadan of the following year, specifically in 1078 CE, the director of the university reached out again, expressing concerns about the escalating situation. The response from the Nizam al-Mulk was severe, marking a critical turning point in the conflict. The letter, preserved in historical records, addressed the rector's concerns and emphasized the importance of unity over division. The translation of key excerpts from this letter reveals the Nizam al-Mulk intentions. Your correspondence was excessively verbose. It is not in the Sultan's interest to favor one school over another. It is preferable to support the Sunnah rather than exacerbate tensions. The establishment of this madrasa was intended to protect knowledge and benefit the community, not to incite disunity. If circumstances deviate from our original intentions, the only option is to close this avenue. We cannot impose changes upon the established beliefs of surrounding cities, which are predominantly aligned with the existing scholars. We have received reports that previous issues have resurfaced, related to queries concerning the core principles of this faith. Quote, thus, the correspondence highlighted the complex interplay of politics, theology, and community dynamics, reflecting the gravity of the ongoing conflict. The response given by Abu Ishaq was markedly different from the prevailing beliefs among the community. Abu Ishaq, a man of good character but lacking strong leadership skills, found himself easily influenced by those around him. Correspondence indicated his susceptibility to pressure, leading to a desire to dismiss the director of the university. The significance of this letter within the Islamic context is profound. It explicitly asserts that any attempt to alter the established beliefs of the people is not only impractical but also detrimental, inciting significant discord. The letter primarily attributes blame to the university director, characterized as well-meaning yet ineffective. It suggests that a firmer leadership approach could have averted the turmoil. The contents of this letter soon became widely known, perceived as a victory for those opposing change. On the 2nd of Shawwal, just after Eid in 470 AH, a student of the university began vocally criticizing the leaders, declaring that their actions amounted to disbelief kufr. He was swiftly attacked by an unknown assailant, resulting in a violent confrontation. Enraged, the students rallied in the marketplace, leading to a full-scale riot. This chaos escalated into a brutal conflict involving weapons, resulting in the deaths of over a dozen individuals, including a student who was already ill. In response, the Khalifa had to intervene, calling in the army to restore order. The fitna, or civil strife, between the two factions reached a deplorable level, with students of knowledge taking part in the violence. This bloodshed raised questions about the motivations behind such conflict and the consequences for those involved. While the physical confrontation may have subsided, it did not extinguish the underlying intellectual disputes, which only intensified. This episode marked the beginning of an ongoing conflict characterized by harsh rhetoric and ideological battles, with both sides continuing to accuse each other of disbelief. This infamous fitna had two significant players, Abu Ja'far and al-Qushayri, both of whom were deeply involved. Rather than resolving tensions, their removal from the situation seemed to exacerbate the discord that persisted. The absence of strong leadership exacerbated tensions among the factions, leading to open conflict between students from the Islamic institution and those affiliated with the opposing school in the main bazaar of Baghdad. This violent encounter resulted in the deaths of over a dozen students. In the aftermath, both sides withdrew from physical confrontations, although verbal disputes continued unabated. Minor skirmishes persisted over the years, with one notable incident recorded in historical texts during the era. Eventually, the supporters of the opposing school petitioned the Khalifa to remove the term that had been assigned to the Islamic College, seeking to refer to it simply as the Islamic College rather than by its previous designation. The Khalifa complied, and thus, 80 years after its establishment, the term was officially removed. This development highlighted one of the college's primary objectives, the dissemination of Ash'ari thought. The events surrounding the fitna, the contentious letters exchanged, and the clashes between the students of al-Ja'far and al-Qushayri reflect the broader realities of the time. Following the death of Abu Ja'far, various successors emerged, each with differing approaches to leadership. Ultimately, al-Juwayni was tasked with recommending a new director for the institution, one who possessed wisdom, diplomacy, and vision. He proposed a candidate well-known among Muslims, al-Ghazali. Al-Ghazali assumed the directorship and professorial chair of this esteemed institution, which was among the most prominent in the Islamic world, eclipsing even the Islamic College of Nishapur. He also took over the chair of the madrasa adjacent to the mosque previously held by al-Qushayri. This transition marked the beginning of a new chapter in Islamic thought, with al-Ghazali's leadership contributing to the flourishing of the Nizamiyyah schools and establishing Ash'ari theology as a formidable counterpart to the Hanbali tradition. Under his guidance, the Islamic educational system underwent significant transformation, fostering intellectual advancement within the Muslim community. The appointment of al-Ghazali by Nizam al-Mulk signified a pivotal moment in Islamic history, warranting careful examination beyond sectarian divides.